Hello and welcome. My name is Frank Kern, and welcome to this training. This training is all about the fine art and potential science of what we're going to refer to as subconscious selling. And this is a very controversial topic, and it's a very misunderstood topic. And I believe the reason this is very controversial is because people mistake it for what it is not. So before we begin, let me be very, very clear with you and let you know what this clearly isn't. So first of all, this is not subliminal selling. I think you might be able to use subliminal messaging to get someone to come to a temporary conclusion, but I've never really heard of anyone having lasting success using subliminal selling all by itself. Nor is this brainwashing or NLP. I'm not really familiar with how NLP actually works. I know some of the basics, such as presupposition and use of metaphor and things like that, but this isn't used in any sort of clinical or therapeutic environment, and nor is this any sort of brainwashing. We're not trying to instill any sort of a foreign belief system in anybody's mind, nor are we trying to use deception at all to do anything nefarious. So people often confuse subconscious selling with some sort of trickery or getting someone to make a decision they ultimately would never make otherwise. And that really is in no way what this is about at all. Instead, this is really about demonstrating value to the point that a purchase from you is a natural byproduct of that value, meaning we're going to do everything at our disposal and everything in our power to genuinely help the prospect so much that their desire to purchase from you is a natural byproduct of receiving that help. And it's a very, very effective system of selling. And we're also going to engineer trust, not through any sort of deception or trickery or anything like that, but through a very calculated delivery of genuine benefit. That means we're going to cold-heartedly and in a calculated manner genuinely help people so much that they're going to like you and want to buy stuff from you repeatedly. And finally, we're going to create desire, which of course is the goal of all marketing, and we're going to do that through the use of positive emotion. So what that really means is we're going to make people feel really, really good. So instead of some sort of trickery, which is what people often think of when they think of the term subconscious selling, what we're really doing is we're helping people tremendously, and we're making them feel very good during the process. So this type of selling is something that is both effective and it's something you can be very, very proud of doing, because you're really genuinely making a positive impact on everybody that you come in contact with. And really, what could be better than that? As a matter of fact, I think that when you practice this type of marketing and selling in your business, you effectively become what we'll call one of the good guys. And historically speaking, the good guys always win. So it is my belief that if you deploy this in your marketing and in your business, you will see long-term success as a result of it, just based on that simple natural law, that if you are a good guy and you genuinely help the world, you will win. Of course, we're going to do everything to really accelerate that process by simply asking for orders and deliberately trying to sell things. But that's the underlying foundation of all of this is really all goodwill based, which is cool. And we use subconscious selling by understanding the two main types of decision triggers that happen in your prospect's brain, and your brain too, and mine as well. So we basically have two things that can cause us to come to a conclusion. And in this case, for the purposes of this training, we'll have that conclusion be, I want to buy this person's stuff. So there are really two triggers that can cause us to have that decision where we decide to buy. The first one is called an external decision trigger, and the second one is called an internal decision trigger. And you might wonder, well, what are the differences between these two, and what do these mean, and why do you have a picture of a brain on the computer? Well, I thought the brain looked cool, so let's talk about what these things really are. So we have internal decision triggers and external decision triggers, and we'll start with external. External decisions are usually decisions we make based on logic. So this is oftentimes we are convinced, basically is what an external decision is when an outside force convinces us. And one of the best ways to do that is through the use of logic and evidence. Like I said, this is typically supported by evidence. And many times an external decision is caused by pressure and fear. So someone might scare us into making a decision. Like, you'd better vote for this candidate or else the terrorists will win. And you know this is true because look at this evidence which we have created. That's a great example of an external decision being triggered in our minds. And these are pretty easy to create in someone. The challenge with an external decision is we don't own that decision. And that, because of this, it is easier for someone to change our minds. So basically, if you were to summarize all of this, what this really means is an external decision is when something outside of ourselves causes us to come to a conclusion, and it does so overtly. So if I say, listen, we need to go see the movie The Big Lebowski, because The Big Lebowski is hilarious. And if you go online and you look at all of these reviews, clearly everybody thinks The Big Lebowski is hilarious. And you're going to like The Big Lebowski, and we need to go see The Big Lebowski, right? And then you might say, okay, you've convinced me to go see The Big Lebowski. Now, when convincing you to do that, let's say hypothetically you are a devout fundamentalist Mormon who does not think drug use and profanity is funny at all. You're going to get to that movie, and your decision that The Big Lebowski is good and you should see it is going to instantly change because you were convinced to go see it, and you were convinced to go see it without any thought of what your internal belief system was. So that's a bit of an extreme example, but that's kind of what an external decision is, right? So the opposite of this is something called an internal decision trigger. And an internal decision is one that we make by ourselves. This is a decision that we come to of our own accord, or at least we think we come to it of our own accord. See, the cool thing about subconscious selling is what we're really about is creating these internal decision triggers and causing them to fire. So what do these mean? Well, first of all, these are usually going to be very emotionally based, right? I like this candidate because they're just like me, and I know they're just like me because they grew up the same way I did, right? See, these are typically supported by stories and feelings. I know this candidate shares my value because the way they told the story of their grandfather working on the farm, and I see their ads, and it's got them walking around in blue jeans and a plaid shirt, and they're talking about their family farm and how they grew up with hard work, and none of that has anything to do with politics, of course, but it causes the viewer to conclude on their own a certain belief about the subject, right? We use subtle use of evidence, but not overt use of evidence, such as overt use of evidence would be, look at this. You see, this means X. And subtle use of evidence would be, well, I grew up on a farm. That's the evidence, drawing you to the conclusion that therefore they have simple values and, value hard work, and they're just like you or whatever. Of course, they probably flew to that farm on the private jet, that used up 9 billion gallons of fossil fuel or whatever. But none of that's presented in the ad or what have you. And I'm using political campaigns just because it's something that everyone can relate to. The cool thing about an internal decision is we own these, right? If you or I come to a conclusion on our own accord, or at least we think it's on our own accord, we will defend that decision, even in the face of evidence showing us that our decision is wrong. And, of course, I've never done this personally, but I'm sure other people have, where you make a decision and then you're like, okay, I have this belief, and then people show you tons of evidence to the contrary to prove that your belief is completely irrational. And instead, we're like, nope, you're wrong, I'm right, and I'm just not even going to talk about it anymore. No, you're wrong. I'm not. Don't show me that evidence. You're wrong. I'm right. And the reason we have that high ownership of decision is because we own it. Right? And when we own it, it's very, very difficult to change that decision. So what we want to do is we want to focus everything on triggering these internal decisions, which means we want our prospects to conclude that they like us and want to do business with us on their own accord, or at least we want them to feel like they have concluded this on their own accord, right? We don't want to convince them of anything. We want them to have the opportunity to convince themselves. Basically, what subconscious selling is all about is us really creating that environment in which they can make the decision about you on their own. Now, we're going to, of course, manufacture all of the stuff needed to cause that to happen. But at the surface level, it looks like they're concluding on their own that you're awesome, that they should buy your stuff, and you're not convincing them. And basically, in order for us to do this, we need to really understand one critical factor, and that is subconscious selling is 100% all about them. It's about your prospect, period. It's never about you. Instead, it's about their needs and their desires and their frustrations and the solutions to their problems and all of the emotions that are associated with those things. That's what subconscious selling is all about. We're literally basically trying to subvert your prospect's mental defenses so that we can do a better job of helping them in the first place, which will then cause them to want to do business with you. Sounds complicated, it really isn't. As a matter of fact, if subconscious selling was a movie, then your prospect would be the star of that movie. So everything is about them. And if you really let that realization sink in, it should take a tremendous amount of pressure off of you. Because in marketing, we're so used to thinking that we have to be the star of the show, that it's all about us. In reality, it's never about us. It's always about them. So what this means is you don't have to build yourself up to be someone really cool. You don't have to put on airs. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Now, you do the marketing, and ultimately you will want to be someone that people follow. But that doesn't mean that you have to be braggadocious or obnoxious or deceptive in any way in terms of creating false credentials or manufacturing social proof of any of that stuff. So it's really a big relief to you. So when it comes to selling anything, or when it comes to really any type of decision, we need to understand that we talk to two different things within the minds of our prospects. We talk to what they want, and we talk to what they need. All right? And which one of these things do you think is more important? Well, clearly it's the one in green, because green means go and red means stop, right? So I'm already using subconscious selling to a degree just by illustrating the difference here through the red and the green. What people want is always more important. We always want to focus on what they want. For example, I need broccoli, and I need probably 5 cardio sessions per week. I need that. I want Haagen-Dazs. And really, I want cigarettes to be good for you, because I used to smoke when I was younger, and I really enjoyed it. I haven't in about 20 years, but boy, was it fun. If it would be good for you, it would be great. So I need cardio. I need broccoli. I want ice cream, cigarettes, and beer. Okay? So what we want and what we need are two totally different things. If we try to sell what we need, we're going to have the worst time ever. But we can get people to want what they need, which is part of what we do in marketing and advertising. And with that in mind, with this sort of taken as fundamental law, that we always focus on what people want. And if we're selling what they need, we need to cause them to want what they need, because we don't really buy what we need. We buy what we want, right? So if we understand that, then we can say, okay, well, what do people really want on a really basic level? Well, what we really want to do is we want to gain pleasure and we want to avoid pain, right? I mean, this is like the human mind 101. We are pleasure-seeking creatures, and we avoid pain. In fact, I was just listening on the way to the studio today to a book called Stealing Fire, which is very, very good. And they were talking about this experiment they did where they were able to, they being scientists or whatever, they were able to put some sort of electrodes into a monkey's brain. And they did so in a way that it was painless. I don't think it hurt the animal. I hope it didn't. And the electrodes allowed the monkey to experience orgasmic pleasure for 16 consecutive hours. So nonstop pleasure. And then the monkey would go to sleep for 8 hours and sleep very, very deeply. And the experiment found that when the monkey was able to do this, that's all it would do. It would literally wake up, press the little button or whatever that activated the pleasure machine or something, and then do that until it went to sleep for 8 hours and get up and do it all over again. We as humans, as living creatures, primarily live to get more pleasure and to avoid pain. And everything we do is fueled by these 6 basic human needs. And within these 6 needs are the big 3. And these kind of drive everything that we're doing. So if you take the pain pleasure thing and you now want to sort of put that as a wrapper on these. So first thing that we look for is certainty and comfort, right? Safety. We want to make sure everything's okay. And then, on the opposite, we want variety. We want a little bit of excitement in our lives, which is cool. And it's funny, Tony Robbins is really the one who popularized this, although it came from another psychiatric or psychologist or something. I forgot the person's name. I should know, but I've forgotten. It really is irrelevant to our purposes. But when Tony teaches this, he says, we want certainty and comfort, but we also want uncertainty and variety. And then he'll say, who likes surprises? And, everyone will raise their hand, and he'll say, you guys are all full of shit. Nobody likes surprises unless they're planned. An unplanned surprise is called a problem, right? So one of our human needs is variety and excitement. Another one is significance. We all want to feel important, right? Another one is love and connection. And another one is growth, and another one is contribution. The big three within here that are really used a lot in marketing are these: certainty, significance, and love and connection. These guys, when combined, if you can satisfy someone's desire or someone's need for these experiences through your marketing, you've got them, right? And if you look at the internet marketing space, and you think about people who are into online marketing and online business, what do they really want? Well, number one, they want consistent sales and financial freedom. What does that give you? That gives you the certainty, right? Financial certainty and safety. And then they want to do these big launches, and they want to be a thought leader. And they, want to have 1 million Facebook fans or whatever. What does that give you? Significance. The desire for significance is so profound, it will cause us to do the irrational. One example of this is when you see people spend a lot of money to have a ghostwriter write a book and then, manufacture or manipulate the Amazon charts so they will be, technically speaking, a bestseller on Amazon. Right? Now, you and I both know that selling a bunch of books, well, first of all, you and I both know that to become a bestseller on Amazon really means that you pick an obscure category and you sell 100 books in a day, and blam, you're a bestseller on Amazon for like 10 minutes. And then you can stick that on your website and say, I'm a bestseller. Now, you and I both know, logically, that that's not going to make you any more money than if you hadn't done it, right? I mean, who cares? People don't buy that. Everyone knows, everyone sees through that now. But the prospects who are buying that stuff, they know it inherently as well, but they still buy it because what they're really buying is that significance of being able to say, hey, look at me, I'm an Amazon bestseller, right? So significance, the drive for the significance can really cause people to defy logic. You always want to use that for good, by the way. I'm just giving you this as an example because it's a true example. And finally, we want love and connection. Right? Love and connection doesn't necessarily mean romantic or familial love. It could mean connection with your peers, industry connection, acceptance, etc. But these are really the big three, right? This is what really, really motivates people more as a generalization than the other ones. So our job is to take all of this, what is at this moment in your training somewhat ethereal knowledge, and then turn it into something that you can actually use. So that's what we're about to do right now. So what we want to do is sort of take that knowledge I just gave you and kind of put it, mentally speaking, into a little box, and put that box over to the side in your mind so you can dip into that box later and take out some of this information when it's appropriate. And with that said, now it's time to start building your stockpile, okay? And what we're going to do is we're now going to understand what makes your prospect tick. So we will have the building blocks for actually creating systems that sell to the subconscious. So like I said earlier, okay, everything we do in subconscious selling is 100% about your prospect, and it is 100% driven by goodwill towards that prospect and desire to help them. So if we take that in mind, what should be the very forefront of everything we do? Well, obviously, it is what our prospects want, right? Like, our job is to get people what they want. So the first thing we need to understand is, what do they want? What are their three biggest desires as they relate to what you have to sell, right? I mean, so my biggest desire might be world peace, and you might be selling fitness. Well, that doesn't compute, right? So if you're looking at me as a prospect, you would say, okay, well, his desire for world peace has nothing to do with fitness. What are some of Frank's biggest desires as they relate to fitness? And I might tell you, well, I'd like to get fit by exercising for 10 minutes a month, okay? And then you might say, well, you're insane, and we might have to work from there. But I think you get the point. So the first thing we want to do is we want to list your prospects' 3 biggest desires as they relate to your offer, because this will become fodder for your marketing. And the next thing we want to do, and this is something no one ever has you do, is we want to list the 3 biggest emotions they would feel if these desires actually came to fruition. Okay? And what I like to do is I like to do it on a piece of paper like this, where we just have 2 categories on a piece of paper, and you just draw a line down the middle. So the first desire for people in my marketplace that I serve is financial abundance. And this is interesting because I work with people who have 5-figure per year businesses, and I work with people who have, what is 300 million? How many figures is that? 9-figure businesses, right? So all across the board. And what all of them want, I jumped ahead. There we go. What all of them want is financial abundance. It doesn't matter if they're already financial abundant. They want even more financial abundance. And if you talk to them about financial abundance and you put them in a state where they can see financial abundance occurring, whether it's literally or in their mind's eye, they get the emotion of optimistic excitement, right? They feel good. They feel like, okay, let's go. Awesome. We can do this. Let's get it done. I'm ready, right? Another thing that my marketplace and my prospects want is time freedom, also known as don't want to have to do anything that sucks, right? They want the time freedom. And when they think about time freedom and you put them in a state where they can experience time freedom, whether it's in the mind's eye or in reality, the emotion that comes with that is typically relief. Oh, thank God. Man, on Monday I don't have to go to that meeting. Thank God I don't have to do that meeting. Oh, you mean I can take a vacation for 6 weeks out of the year? Oh my God, thank God. This is going to do wonders for my relationship with my family. Okay? And then another thing, a huge one, is recognition and fame. All right? Like 99% of the people I deal with either overtly want this, well, they'll come right out and tell you, this is what I want, or they won't tell anybody, but that's really what they want. What's funny is like 1% of people that I work with don't want this at all and could really care less about this. And interestingly enough, these are the ones that make the most money, the ones who could really care less about recognition and fame. I'm thinking specifically of one client who owns a $300 million a year company that I work with, and he doesn't ever want anyone to know who he is. He doesn't hide, but he could care less. He don't want to be on stage. He just wants to count the money. That's interesting, right? But think of the emotion that goes along with this, which is pride. And then, look, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be recognized and famous in your field. That's classic human needs, which is going to be significant, right? So the emotions here are pride. Okay, so this is step number 1. Now, we're going to use these in a minute, all right? But for now, I just want you to write this out. Just get a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, put desires, emotions, and write the 3 biggest desires. And this off the top of your head, oftentimes your gut feeling is right. Write down the emotions that go along with each desire if they were to be met, okay? So now's our next step. Our next step in building the stockpile is actually 3 parts, okay? The first thing we want to do is we want to list your prospects' 3 biggest frustrations as they relate to your offer. Okay, frustrations that actually are relevant to what it is you're selling, not just in general in their life, but relevant to what it is that you're selling. The next thing we want to do is we want to list 3 symptoms that these frustrations cause or are linked to in their lives. It's hard to explain, so I'm just going to show you in a second. And the third thing we want to list is the 3 biggest emotions they feel as a result of these symptoms and frustrations. Now, I've added in this weird third variable here, which is symptoms, right? You're probably like, dude, what are you talking about with symptoms? I don't quite understand what that means. Well, let me show you, okay? So first, let's start with the frustration. So if we look at my marketplace, where are we? Here we go. One big frustration is they can't convert, right? People go to the webpage, they don't buy enough stuff. That's a huge frustration for people. In fact, I think every single person I ever come in contact with would love to increase conversion. They're like, yes, I would like to convert even better. They could have 99% conversion, and they would want 100. Okay, I mean, it's just human nature. So that's number 1 frustration. I'm not getting the conversions I want. Next one might be I can't get traffic. Man, I can't get traffic from Facebook, or I can't get affiliates. I just can't get people to my webpage. It's a huge frustration, right? And another one, probably the biggest of all, the most sinister, is overwhelm. Okay, man, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. I got all this information coming at me all the time. I just don't have time to do it. Break it out. Okay, so we know these frustrations. These are very, very easy for us to identify. So now what does this cause in their lives, right? What does their inability to convert actually cause as a symptom? Well, that causes low sales, right? If you can't convert, you're not going to sell enough, and therefore you're going to have financial uncertainty. Okay, now if we were speaking to this, which is more powerful for us to address in our marketing? hey, we understand you don't have conversions that you want. That's number one. Number two is, have you ever woken up in the morning and it's a brand new week and you had a bad week last week and you think to yourself, man, if I have another slow week, I might not be able to make rent. Okay, now we're really talking to the symptom and not the frustration. That's why I'm having you do this exercise. Let's look at can't get traffic, right? So that's the frustration. I can't get the traffic. What symptom does this cause? Well, it causes no forward momentum. Well, if you can't get any traffic to the web page, you don't even have enough momentum to see if it converts well or not, right? So you can write the best sales letter in the world, but if no one's going to the damn page, you have no idea if it's even any good, all right? So that's very, very frustrating. It's terrible, okay? And of course, there's zero fulfillment of one's desire for significance. If no one's learning about your message, no one's seeing your message, you can't feel that significance. You can't get that connection, right? So no good is coming from this, right? And then the third is going to be overwhelm, right? So overwhelm is no fun. And the symptom that this causes is a feeling of being frozen, right? I mean, this happens to everybody in some aspect of life. I'm, of course, spend the vast majority of my waking conscious time serving entrepreneurs who market online, so I understand that market very, very well, and I know that an overwhelming amount of information causes them to not know where to begin, and thusly they get frozen and do nothing, and in their being frozen, they begin to experience a lot of frustration and self-doubt because they're not making any process or any progress. So it's a very bad cycle. Okay, so just understanding the symptoms that these frustrations cause is very, very powerful, because this is what we want to speak to in our marketing. But how can we make this even more powerful? All right, well, the more powerful thing to do is to understand the emotions that are triggered by these symptoms. So when you're experiencing the symptom, how do you feel as the prospect? Well, if you have financial uncertainty, what do you feel? You feel fear and worry, right? So imagine now we're in our marketing and we say, do you ever wake up just absolutely terrified that this month is going to be as bad as last month and you're not going to be able to make rent? Then what if you can't send your children to school anymore? How are they going to explain to their friends that daddy was unable to pay the tuition? Right? I mean, you could just really play on this fear and worry a lot as a marketer if you wanted to, which we should, actually, if we help people in the process of doing it. Then there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it, and we'll cover that in this training. All right? Let's talk about this inability to get traffic. So you can't get traffic. That's the frustration. It manifests as the symptom of no forward momentum, no recognition, no significance whatsoever. That causes frustration, right, and lack of confidence. So I'm not confident in anything because I can't even get people to come to my webpage. Is someone going to make a good buying decision if they're feeling fearful and worried and frustrated? No. You're in no position to buy anything if this is what you're feeling, right? Now, we can scare people into buying something, but it's usually going to be a buying decision they regret. There's not a long-term prospect, so we don't really want to play on this emotion. We want to get rid of this emotion and transform it, okay? And we'll talk about how to do that in this very video here. So our next phase here is going to be, what are the emotions associated with this overwhelm? So overwhelm leads to a symptom of being frozen, which causes the emotion of stress and hopelessness, right? Anytime we're overwhelmed, our brain just shuts down. We just feel like we can't do anything, right? So if someone is fearful, frustrated, stressed out, and feeling hopeless, what do you think the chances of them buying from you are? Very, very, very slim. So we could prey on this like so many marketers do, hey, let's scare the hell out of them or whatever, or we could just take these emotions and make them go away and transform them into something more positive by genuinely being helpful. That is what subconscious selling is about removing the bad and replacing it with the good to the point that they feel confident enough to buy something. All right, so here's our job in a nutshell. We want to replace the negative emotions with positive emotions by eliminating the frustrations, by moving your prospect towards their desires by using a framework called escape and arrival. Now, if you're familiar with escape and arrival, I want you to pay very close attention because I've only shown you 2 levels of it in the past, if in fact you've ever learned this from me. If you're new to it, then disregard what I'm telling you and just approach this with an open mind. If you've heard of escape and arrival before, continue to pay attention because you've only heard 2/3 of the 3 levels of it. All right, so here's the deal with escape and arrival. What people really buy, I don't care what the thing is you're selling. What they really buy is escape and arrival. They're escaping from where they don't want to be, and they're arriving to where they do want to be. I mean, think about a Ferrari, right? Like rarely the person who buys a Ferrari wakes up in the morning and say, my God, I just have to have 530 horsepower to go from my house to Starbucks to get diapers and back home. I just really need that 530 horsepower. I've got to have this car because you never know when I might need to go 0 to 60 in 2.1 seconds or whatever. That's not what they're thinking, right? They're escaping from feeling uncool and insignificant, and they're arriving to being the envy of their friends. Right? That's really what you're selling. So we have to understand that, and we have to really map out everything that needs to happen in order for them to escape from where they don't want to be and to arrive at where they do want to be. And we do this by following the escape and arrival framework. So there's like a process for doing this and a framework. I'm going to give it to you right now. So we map out escape and arrival on 3 levels. Level 1 is called the global level, and this is all the stuff they got to do to escape their current situation and arrive at their desired situation. That's level 1. This is essentially your big picture overview, right? So if we were doing this for dating prospect, our global level would be, all right, you want to escape from not having a date and you want to arrive at being popular with women. So what do you got to do? Well, step 1, you got to change your appearance. Step 2, you got to learn how to walk up to a girl and say, hey. Step 3, you have to not have a stupid conversation, actually be engaging and charming in that conversation. Step 4 is you need to get the phone number. And step 5 is you have to be able to call her up and not fumble the phone call and actually ask for the date. So these are like the global level things that they need to do. Okay? So this is level 1, global level. This is your example here. So the milestone level is going deep on one of these steps. Okay? So how to get the phone number here? This is a milestone, right? Every one of these things on your global level, these are called milestones. They have to pass through each milestone in order to get to the goal, right? So for example, if we don't change our appearance, we could walk up to a girl and ask her for the number, but if we haven't showered in a week and we're wearing our Darth Vader costume, right, and whatever, we drive up in a car, the bumper sticker says, I love farting. I've actually seen a guy wearing a Darth Vader costume driving said car with said bumper sticker. That's where I got that example. We're not going to do a good job of getting the phone number, probably. Right? So these are all milestones. So the milestone level is when we take one of these milestones and we go deep on it, right? So we would go deep now on showing someone how to get the phone number. We would go deep on showing them how to actually do that one thing. Okay, so that's called the milestone level. Now the third level, which I've never taught before, is the emotional level. And this is where we want to create emotional states that are conducive to making a good decision. So it's one thing to understand everything they have to do in order to get where they want to go so we can help them get there through our marketing. That's very, very effective. If we marry that with making them feel the way they need to feel on that journey, it makes this process exponentially more effective. Okay? So all of these levels use the same framework, which is the timeline method, which is really cool. So let me show it to you. So on the global level, this is where we just have to map out everything someone's got to do to get to where they want to be. Here's what we do. I'll give you an example. All right. I literally do this on a piece of paper, and I'll draw 2 dots here, and I'll connect it with a line. And on that line, I'll make these little dashes. And what this is the timeline showing everything they have to do in order to get to where they want to be. So I'll give you an example. Let's say our prospect was a business owner who wanted to sell stuff online. Okay, well, this person wants to escape from not having a website, and he wants to arrive to having a website that sells stuff online. Okay, so in the global timeline here, what we want to do is we just want to outline the big milestones he's got to get through in order to go from here to here. Okay, so first thing he's got to do is he's got to set up the website. Second thing, he's got to accept payments. Can't have a website that sells stuff without the ability to sell stuff. Third thing, he's got to build the fundamental page, his home page, about me page. Fourth thing, got to build the marketing pages, like a sales letter that sells the doohickey. The next thing, he's got to have like the messaging right on the marketing pages, right? He can't just say doohickey for sale, give me money. He's got to build value and desire for the doohickey he's selling. Next thing is he's got to have some automation, like what happens when they buy it? How does it get fulfilled? What if they opt in for your email list? How do you send them emails and stuff? Okay. The next thing is he's got to get some traffic to this sucker. And then he's got to have some analytics So he'll know if the traffic is working or not. And then you're going to want him to do some advanced marketing like behavioral dynamic response and all this hardcore cool stuff, right? And this is really kind of an optional thing. But if he goes through all of these milestones, if he does all of this stuff, then he's going to escape from not having a website, and he's going to arrive to having a website that sells stuff, right? If he does all of these things right. So in this timeline, this is just the global level. This is just everything at the big picture level that this prospect's got to do to escape from where he is and arrive to where he wants to be. So the milestone level is where we take one of these milestones and we do the same process just by going deep on that milestone. So what we do is we say, okay, same process, right? We draw our lines and our dashes and stuff. And let's say the milestone is he wants to set up the website. All right, so that was his very first milestone, if you remember. Okay, here we go. So his first milestone was set up website, right? So come over here for you. There we go. So now we just go deep on the milestone level. We go deep on that milestone through the same process. He wants to escape from not having a website itself, like johnsmith.com, and he wants to arrive to having johnshardware.com or whatever it is. So what does he have to do to get to actually pass through that one specific milestone? Well, he's got to find a domain. He's got to buy a domain. He's got to get a hosting account. He's got to set up his email, john@johnsmith.com. He's got to potentially understand cPanel or whatever it is that makes the website work, maybe WordPress, maybe ClickFunnels, whatever. But he has to know how to get pages built and stuff. And then he's got to, at the very least, build a homepage, right? So if he does these things, he will at least have a website. Now, it's not a website that sells stuff yet, but he will at least have a website, right? Now, if we help this guy get a website, he's going to be more inclined to buy our how to get a website that sells stuff online material because we've already helped him. We've now given him some confidence because he's moved one step closer to his goal. You see how this works? So we can now take the second milestone if we wanted to and go deep on that, right? So he wants to escape from can accept payments. He wants to go to can accept payments. So what does he have to do to get there? Well, he's got to understand what the choices are. Should you use PayPal? Should you get a real merchant account? Should you go to your bank down the road? Should you use Stripe? What should you do? And then when you make that decision, how do you actually get that account? How do you apply for it? What do you say? What do you not say? And then, now that you have a merchant account, how do you actually sell stuff? That means you need to have some sort of a shopping cart or something. And then how do you integrate your shopping cart with your merchant account? You got to make these guys talk to each other. They don't just do it by default, typically. And then how do you plug that into your website, right? So something as simple as accept payments actually is a lot deeper. So this is what it looks like on the milestone level, all right? So here, I won't make you watch me do all of these three. Our next step here is to make one observation, which is we don't have to actually do anything with every bit of this information. This is the thing number one. So it's real easy to get overwhelmed if we say, oh my God, I have to know and be an expert on every single thing this person has to do to get from point A to point B. And the answer is no. Okay, you don't. You just want to know what exists so you'll know the lay of the land, so you can talk about it and address it and either move someone forward or away from a certain outcome with that knowledge. So in my business, for example, I sell to people, right, that want to sell things online. These are really the only areas that I work in right here, these three. Marketing pages, marketing messaging, and automation, and to a degree advanced marketing as well. But these are the big three areas that I live. I never have set up a website training. I never have accept payments training. I never have a video or training on how to build a home page, right? It's all about these three areas. So you're going to have your area of expertise. It's fine, but you still need to know all of this stuff. Because if you take someone who has no website and isn't selling anything online and they want to arrive to a point where they can sell things online, just the sheer virtue of explaining this process to them, everything they need to do, what's that going to do? It's going to give them confidence. And that confidence is a positive emotion that we want to create, right? So, speaking of emotion, here's the third level of escape and arrival, which is the emotional level. And this is where we want to create something called conducive relief. And what this means is we want to relieve them of the bad negative emotions you just outlined, and we want to replace them with good emotions that are conducive to them buying stuff from you and generally make them feel better. We want to actually help people. So how do we do this? So this is a little esoteric sounding or ethereal, but we'll tie it together further through this training. So now what I'm really trying to do is sort of give you some big picture overviews of what we do. So what we do is it's the exact same timeline, okay? And we say, all right, we have our line and we got our dots and stuff, and we say, okay, let's say if we go back to here, right, that someone can't convert, and as a result of this, they have low sales and financial uncertainty, and as a result of that, they feel fearsome and worryful, right? Or feel fearful and worrisome. I got those two words mixed up, okay? So we're in the situation. This is who we're trying to help right now. So we're trying to build our emotional framework based on this knowledge that here's the situation at hand, okay? So how do we do it? Well, let me see here. First thing we're going to do, with our fear and worry, they want to get confidence and certainty. What's going to make that happen? Well, in this particular example, it's if they're able to convert, right? If they are able to actually get a visitor to their website and that visitor buys something, they're no longer going to be fearful. They're now going to be excited and confident. They're going to have certainty that, hey, if I keep doing this, now there's hope, right? I got a concrete, tangible experience here, and I think I can do it, and this is really cool, and yes, let's move forward. I feel good now, right? But in order to do that, we have to replace this fear and worry. And in order to do that, we have to help them get these conversions in advance, right? In this particular example. So how do we do that on the timeline, right? So what are the milestones they need to pass through in order to get from fear and worry to confidence and certainty within the context of learning to convert, right? Well, first thing we want to do is we want to have them believe that they can actually sell stuff through direct response. So if you take somebody who's never sold online or by mail or anything, and they've never experienced what direct response really is, they might be very skeptical that it just simply can't be done. They might say, oh, no, my business is different. You have to show up in person and have a meeting and submit a proposal and blah, 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 right? So the first thing we got to do is we got to prove to them that it can be done. Now, by default, many people are going to say, and it can be done because I'm so great and I can help you and I'm amazing and here's all my accolades and my awards and here's what people say about me and you better do it because me. That's not what we're going to do. Instead, we would just show them stories of success, right? So I might say, interestingly enough, one of the most stodgy businesses in the world is financial services, and in 1930-something, a fellow whose name I'm now blanking on. I've done an entire video on this guy. I can't remember his name. I'll just call him Lewis. His first name was Lewis, I think. Wrote a very informative advertisement for the firm that became Merrill Lynch, and it turned Merrill Lynch into one of the biggest companies in the world, and it was direct response, and here it is. And here's how it worked. I'm showing them stories of success, right? All I want to do in this is just get them to believe it can be done. If they don't believe it can be done, they're never going to have the confidence to even attempt to create materials that convert, right? So next thing I might do is I might then explain to them the concept of modeling. Say, now listen, we know that you can sell stuff through direct response, and the good news is you don't have to start from scratch. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Instead, you want to model what really works. And in doing this, I might show them the famous Wall Street Journal ad, which tells the tale of two men. Both went to the same college. One grew up to be very, very successful. The other one wasn't. The difference was they read the Wall Street Journal. And I might say, look, this one ad created God knows how much revenue for the Wall Street Journal. I think it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars as the story goes. And I might say, isn't that an amazing thing? And then I would say, you know what? They didn't come up with that idea. This was actually modeled from another promotion that came generations before it, which is true, actually, by the way. So I'd teach them to understand the concept of modeling. So if I give them the belief that they can do it, and then I instill the belief that they don't have to start from scratch, you just model what works. If we do this emotionally, where are they going? They're going from fearful to having hope to now having a little bit of confidence, at least in trying it, right? Because they don't think they have to start from scratch. So now I would introduce a swipe file teaching offer structure. I might say, look, now the first place you want to start is your offer, what it is that you have for sale and how an offer really, really works. And I teach them things like building values, creating urgency, and doing risk reversal. And I give them a swipe file, right? And then I say, okay, now you have that. Now it's time to actually get people to read the offer. And the first thing you got to do is have a headline. I teach them some good headlines and stuff, and I'd give them a swipe file. And if we did this in this order, what would happen? Well, number one, they would no longer feel fearful and worried Instead, they would feel confident because even if they didn't create these materials I'm teaching them to create, they could at least understand in their mind's eye that they could create these materials. And that understanding and that visualization of themselves successfully doing it, following this very rigidly set up series of events here, would cause them to feel confident and have certainty that they could be successful. And that emotion is an emotion which would be conducive to them moving forward with us, right? And buying our product, and actually taught them how to sell online. Now, on the emotional level, that's what we've done. But what have we also done on, I guess we can call it the physical plane? Well, we've taught them how to get through this milestone, right? So the first thing we got to get them to do is get rid of this frustration, which they can't convert, and get them converting. Well, what have we done? If they actually do this stuff, their conversions are going to improve, and then what are they going to do? They're going to want more from us, and that in and of itself might cause a purchase to be made. Okay, so what I'm going to do in the context of this class is I'm going to show you how to do all of this stuff on two levels. I'm going to show you how to do it on the physical plane, which by that I mean the obvious plane where you're literally showing someone how to do something. And I'm also going to show you how to manipulate the subconscious so you can make all of this stuff more powerful. And the way we do this is largely through stories and heroes and leaders. So in our next video, I'm going to teach you how to use stories to actually do this stuff, right? So once we know the outline of all the beliefs we need to have them create, now we're going to create these beliefs through the use of story. Okay, so that concludes this video. I'll see you in the next one.